suddenly it's everywhere. What is cortisol?
Cortisol is definitely having its hot moment on socials. I think if we didn't have cortisol, we wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. I think we've got cortisol face and, lots of people trying to advise on how to reduce down cortisol, and lots of young people getting really worried about it.
What are some symptoms if I have high cortisol?
Well, firstly, women, our baseline is higher than men due to our hormones. So we're always high cortisol.
Right.
So it's definitely something women have to focus on a lot.
So what would make you go to get tested? Is it the bloating? What are some things that make you think, you know what, maybe that's me, maybe I should get tested?
Bioindividuality is so important. The simple things we can do to reduce cortisol is a lot of us in modern day life are completely stuck in survival mode. We're stuck in fight or flight. I like to use the cookie analogy that I've come up with, which is like when we eat a cookie, it's got fat in it, it's got sugar in it, it's not going to make us feel great. But if you actually beat yourself up about eating the cookie, you produce cortisol, which is a fat storer. So you're getting fat from the cookie, plus it's a double whammy.
How much does screen time affect your cortisol levels?
Look, I think it's...
Welcome to Swish Wellness Unlocked, the podcast that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what works. We're your hosts, Sally Obermeder
and Maha Corbett.
We're founders of a global wellness brand that's been changing lives for over a decade. Every episode, we're going to explore the latest trends. We'll dive into breakthrough science and insights from leading experts to help you live, feel, and look your best. No fluff, just facts that work. Let's unlock it.
Cortisol, that's the stress hormone that can make or break your energy, your sleep, and in fact, your overall well-being. Too much and you're stuck in survival mode. Too little and you're basically running on empty. But what if you could hack it so that you could get it to work for you instead of against you? That's where today's guest comes in. Today's guest is the amazing Camilla Thompson. She's a leading biohacker and longevity expert, and she's an executive well-being coach, plus an author, and she's got a deep background in epigenetics and also neuroplasticity. And she has helped countless people optimize their health. Now, today, Camilla is going to basically break down for us the science of cortisol, why this powerful hormone controls so much more than just stress, how it impacts your energy, your mood, your metabolism, and most importantly, what you can do to balance it. She's got some game-changing insights. She's also got some really incredible practical biohacks and some expert tips to help us take control of our health. Let's unlock it. Cortisol. For people who maybe, previous to sort of falling down a TikTok hole might have, you've heard of it like it's something that, if you need to run away from a bear, that's kind of the extent of what you think you need it for. But then suddenly it's, like often in socials, suddenly it's everywhere. Now suddenly everyone's like, hang on.
Yeah.
What is this? So maybe just for anyone who's not precisely sure, what is cortisol?
Well, look, it's definitely having a hot moment on TikTok, and it's getting a bit of bad rap as well. And actually cortisol is so essential as part of our survival functioning. And if we didn't have cortisol, we wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. So as with adrenaline. So they're both produced from our adrenal glands and vital. So really important. But yeah, cortisol is definitely having its hot moment on socials. I think we've got cortisol face and, lots of people trying to advise on how to reduce down cortisol. And lots of young people getting really worried about it.
Yeah. So maybe let's just go. So how is it different to adrenaline?
So they're both sort of helping to boost us and give us that energy and support our immune system.
Yep.
They kind of work in tandem together.
Yeah.
The problem we've got with cortisol and adrenaline is when we're constantly running on it. So going back to what you said at the beginning, but it is that fight or flight. So that response where we're in survival mode.
Yep.
That's so essential and important. But a lot of us in modern day life are completely stuck in survival mode. We're stuck in fight or flight. So we're constantly running on cortisol and adrenaline, and that's really not good for the body.
So everyday stress is a part of life.
Yep.
Is it about reducing stress, which like everyone says, and then we all kind of groan and roll our eyes because it,
so hard.
life is stressful.
Yep.
How much of it's essential? If you're not being chased by a bear, do you actually need it?
We do need some. Like some stress is good, it's healthy and it pushes us. And some people actually thrive in a stress state, but others not so much. So again, it depends on how our nervous system is responding. It depends on how we perceive stress, which is really important. But yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things that are within our control when it comes to stress. I talk about micro stress doses. So those are the small droplets of stress that we get all day. And then we've got macro stresses. These are the big things that happen in our lives that we don't tend to have much control over.
Yeah.
But the importance is how we switch out of these states. So can we switch out from fight or flight back into more of a rest and digest, into our more parasympathetic nervous system? If we can't switch, that's when problems start occurring because we're stuck.
It's the kind of the elongated stress periods.
Yes.
Do you think there are some people who can switch easier or more seamlessly than others?
Absolutely. Yes. And look, it just really depends on, a lot of it can be mindset. A lot of it is depending on the particular genetic makeup, how we respond to stress, our heart rate variability. So there's lots of different factors. But again, it's training, it's how do we train ourselves to go, okay, I'm in a threat state, I'm feeling stressed, but okay, I'm going to do a bit of breath work. I'm going to do something, have a cold shower, whatever it is, try and work with stimulating my vagus nerve, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. But there are so many ways that we can take control of a situation when we feel that we're stressed.
So maybe let's just, before we go to the vagus nerve, how would we know, like what are some symptoms that, like what would be if someone's like, I'm not sure if I have high cortisol. I don't know if that's me. What are some symptoms?
Well, firstly, being a biohacker,
yes.
I'm all about measuring and data and getting those metrics. So actually finding out, okay, if I think I'm running high on cortisol, let me measure that and get a test done to see if I am.
Yeah.
I think what's happening now is a lot of people are self-diagnosing and saying, I'm high cortisol, I've got a bloated belly, or my face looks a bit round, so therefore I've got too much cortisol. Whereas, and there's things like irritability, anxiety, there's all these different things, but sometimes that's a sign of something else, not necessarily cortisol.
Yep.
So I think getting tested to work out, am I running high in cortisol? Women, our baseline is higher than men due to our hormones. So we're always high cortisol.
Right.
And then you layer in all our invisible loads and the mental load and our toxic load and the juggling and competing demands. And we're up there with cortisol.
Yep.
So it's definitely something women have to focus on a lot.
So what would make you go to get tested? Is it the bloating? Is it like, what are some things that make you think, you know what, maybe that's me, maybe I should get tested?
I think, look, there's some simple ways you can get tested. I think everyone should, because I think it's important to know how we're responding to stress and what our cortisol levels are like.
Yeah.
So you can do that through blood, urine, saliva. I've recently did mine through a urine test to look at my hormones and what my cortisol levels were like. And surprisingly, I thought they're going to be a lot worse than they were, but they weren't as bad. But I mean, I've got a lot of tools and techniques that I use, but I still get stressed.
Yes.
There's still things that happen, but I've learned to reframe so much. When I feel that elevation of cortisol, like I know I can tap in and go, what zone am I in here?
You've got a toolkit.
Yeah.
So you're a biohacker. You spoke about that. For anybody who's, maybe not familiar with the term, what is that?
Well, essentially, simply, it's about taking control of our health and well-being and our biology and hacking into our biology. So looking at what are some of the environmental and lifestyle changes that we can make to help us to live well longer, to support our health span, so that we get to live a long, healthy, happy life.
So anyone can do this, right?
Anyone can do it.
Yes.
I'm being called the everyday biohacker now because a lot of things that I'm sharing and talking about are things that anyone can do. We've got lots of extreme biohackers globally at the moment who are doing incredible things, but we really want to make it accessible for everybody.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that you think that people need to know. It's not necessarily about having to rush out and buy a million different things.
No,
yes, of course, there are tools or things that you can get, but a lot of it is stuff that you probably already are doing. You're just tweaking how you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I talk about the biohacking basics, and they're the foundations. And that's like, eating properly, sleeping well, and all of this impacts our cortisol as well.
Yes.
So everything's underlying with our nervous system, with our gut health, with, everything, how we're recovering, if we're resting. A lot of people are stuck in this high functioning place where we're constantly in task mode. We're doing things all day. We're doing things at home. At weekends, we don't allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to rest. And this is when cortisol gets out of control, because we're not actually creating space to wind down and, get into our parasympathetic nervous system.
So what's the best way to do that? Do people need to schedule their rest? Do people need to, and if
I like
so,
that idea.
yeah, because I'm somebody who does struggle, to be honest. You know, I like what I call, productive relaxation, which is an absolute oxymoron. Like
cleaning the kitchen.
Yeah, they don't go together, those two things, But and if it is scheduled or planned or whatever, how much do you need?
Well, I guess this is being more intuitive, right?
Yeah.
And bio-individuality is so important. So what works for me might not work for you. And this is the problem with TikTok and this sort of cortisol craze, is that there's lots of people giving out advice on what to do. And then people try it doesn't work, or they get overwhelmed and confused, or it's conflicting. But really, you've got to find out what works for you and what fits into your lifestyle and how you can carve those moments out. But, even like I get some of my clients, I work with a lot of high performing leaders. It's just when they go to the loo, just to do some breath work, it's like, or when they're walking from a meeting to just breathe as they walk, because that's the only moments they can capture to sort of recharge and reset.
Yeah.
Another great hack is, I call it the plant hack. And so plants need vitamin D, they need air, and they need water to thrive. And so do humans. So about getting 5 minutes of fresh air and a bit of vitamin D and some proper hydration is really important in the day. That's just those moments that you can take to sort of recharge.
But is it, because like if I think of myself, like I would I could walk to get a coffee or get some sunshine. I'm sure I breathe on my way there. I must, otherwise I'd be dead. So I must have. But inevitably my mind is racing. I suspect probably to some level, like my heart's racing, my adrenaline, cortisol is definitely kicking along. How important is it, the part about slowing down the mind? And if so, then like, how do you do that?
Yeah. And so many people struggle with that because we are stuck in this sort of high functioning place where we're constantly, like the brain's a series of networks, and there's a task network, which is where I call it the getting shit done brain, but it's where we're constantly doing stuff. And a lot of us are stuck there and our brains are just on overdrive. There's too many tabs open.
Yes.
So look, the fact that you're walking and you're getting some fresh air and you're in nature, that reduces by 20 to 30% your stress levels, the walking, and an extra 10% to 15% in nature. So that's what the research shows us. So you are actually reducing your cortisol, even though your mind's going,
a million miles an hour.
Yeah, you're like gliding like the duck with your little feet going. But yeah, look, it's just really about trying to connect in with your senses. That's what's really important. That's what gets us out of that part of the brain where we're thinking. So we're either internalizing, we're thinking, we're ruminating, we're, overthinking everything, or we're doing, and we just yo-yo from thinking to doing, and we're not spending enough time in that sensory, which is looking at the ocean. What can we see? What can we smell? What can we feel? What can we touch? Those simple things are how we get out of that overthinking brain, that monkey brain.
Yes. Okay. So assuming you've got sort of, I guess, elevated levels of cortisol over a long period of time, essentially, is it aging us? Is it...
Yeah.
Like, what are the effects?
Look, I think short term, we can feel the short term impacts of that high levels of cortisol. But I think long term, it really is impacting us, and particularly women, because as we go through perimenopause and menopause and pregnancies and things like that, our cortisol elevates as well. So then we're kind of like, we've got double whammies of cortisol. I like to use the cookie analogy that I've come up with, which is like when we eat a cookie, it's got fat in it, it's got sugar in it, it's not going to make us feel great. But if you actually beat yourself up about eating the cookie, you produce cortisol, which is a fat storer. So you're getting fat from the cookie, plus it's a double whammy. So I might just enjoy the cookie once in a while. But
so good.
But I think the stressing out about it, and this is what worries me about young people on TikTok. They're like, I'm like, live your life, stop worrying about cortisol. Like, I'm not diminishing how they're feeling, because there's so much anxiety around. But yeah, there's lots we can do to stop sort of getting too neurotic about it.
Let's talk about that TikTok craze, like around, I guess falling down a rabbit hole, and maybe it's well-intentioned, right? Like you'll hear something, you think, oh my God, I do want to improve whatever area that is, or maybe that is me, and we do want to take control of our wellness. So it's like, what have you seen around that?
Look, I think some of it's great. You know, some of it's really good. Some of it's really confusing. Some of it's misinformation. Some of it's really conflicting. So I personally find it quite overwhelming myself on TikTok. Like there's so much flashing at you. My little brain can't cope sometimes. It's too much stimulation. But look, I think some of it's well-meaning, but I think it is confusing people. And the simple things we can do to reduce cortisol is, breathwork. So I get all my clients every night to put their hands on their belly and breathe in and out through their nose. And you really want to extend that exhale through the nose.
Oh, yeah.
So I call it big belly, little belly. So it's where we want our belly to expand up like a balloon, and then we want to decompress. This activates that parasympathetic nervous system and sends a message to our body that we're safe. And it's like, hey, you're okay. I've got you. Calm down. So it's an absolutely great habit and just a really easy thing to do every night.
5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Till you fall asleep. Just at least 10 breaths till you fall asleep. It becomes such a habit. And then during the day, if you feel that your stress is rising, then you just go, okay, couple of breaths and just go back to that really diaphragmatic breathing. So that's one thing. Cold showers are amazing. So
do you have to dispel this myth for me? I've heard so many versions. Some that say, look, anything below the shoulders is fine. Some that say absolutely not. It must, you need full, you have to get your hair wet if you're, like me, doesn't want to get their hair wet, but you've got to go forehead down.
Look, if you're doing a cold shower, you can have your warm shower and then just turn it to cold at the end. And it's good for your hair. All the models do cold showers for the hacks. The hair looks beautiful. So there you go. Double benefit. But look, the cold showers are amazing. And really even 30 seconds is going to make a huge difference. Right. And it really helps to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. It helps to support the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
So really important, as does grounding, walking in the sand, the grass.
Being actually feet on nature, like feet in the grass. Okay,
eating proper food as well, nutrition, like good fats, fiber, complex carbs, that they help support cortisol in a positive way.
Greens, I know. Yep. Green vegetables obviously help with cortisol. Gut, fiber products obviously help with cortisol. The research has shown that, just coming back to the vagus nerve. So it's up here, right?
It is. It runs from our brain to our gut.
Yes.
So I like to call it the queen of the nervous system, and it sort of protects us beautifully. It's something we're learning more and more about, the vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory and vagal toning and all. It's fascinating. But it really does, it's part of that parasympathetic nervous system. So our sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight. It's like we're in survival. But the parasympathetic is our rest, our digest, our calm, we're safe place. Yes. And the vagus nerve supports that part of our nervous system.
Okay. So diet obviously impacting cortisol, specific food.
Sugar will make it worse. Refined sugars, not great. Fried foods, ultra processed foods, they all impact, they disrupt so much of our body. Yep. So, and you'll often crave, if you're running high on cortisol, you'll often crave I was going to say carbs and they came to the same word, but you'll crave like sort of not good carbs and you'll crave sugar and things like that because the body's looking for energy.
Energy, because you're running from the bear.
Energy. Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing with cortisol is with adrenals, like adrenal fatigue often leads to burnout. So when we're running our adrenals to the ground, so we're constantly on adrenaline and cortisol, particularly women, the rushing women syndrome, Dr. Libby Weaver, that book changed my life. I read it and I was like, it's me. Yes. I am the rushing woman. Yes. And, that was my first sort of part with cortisol. I was like, I am running on cortisol all the time. Yes. I'm completely disconnected with my body.
Yes.
I think I'm being healthy because I'm going to the gym and eating healthy food, but I'm so stressed out and I'm running around like a mad person. And it just made me realize we've got to slow down. And particularly with cortisol, women, when we're running high on cortisol, coffee on an empty stomach, not great, alcohol, all these things sort of exasperate it. And particularly doing really high intensity exercise, if we are running high on cortisol, that's going to just make it worse. It compounds.
So exercise obviously plays a role in cortisol regulation.
It's so important.
Does it need to be slow? Does it need to be what does it need to be?
It needs to be a mix. And I think, look, yoga, Pilates, amazing, weight training, strength training, but it's a certain amount of high intensity training is okay, but doing like a 45-minute to an hour cardio for some people is not going to work for them.
Yeah.
You always hear that classic people going to F45 and they're like, why am I putting on weight? And it's like, because you're not doing the right exercise for your body.
Yeah.
It's putting more stress, on your body, which is creating more cortisol.
Yes.
So finding more restorative ways to exercise, walking, like light jogging, weights are so important.
Yeah, weight-bearing exercise.
We've got to get our strength, particularly when we're looking at health span and staying independent and living a long life. We've got to be strong.
Yeah, it's so funny. We always talk about weight-bearing exercise, how important it is, how really, and like dispelling, and I feel like, to be fair to TikTok, and socials and stuff, I feel like that has come along, that has done a lot in showing people, women in particular, who maybe grew up in an era where they were afraid of weight training, where everyone told them they were going to get big, they were going to get bulky, the stuff that actually just, doesn't happen. And suddenly now, TikTok especially, I feel like you're seeing a lot of girls lift, and it's like, cool, man. It's so inspiring. Good. Yeah, hugely.
And this is the power of social media, is we are learning so much about things that we never would have known about. I've just learned stuff about my body last year going into perimenopause. I was like, how do I not know this? At like 47 years old, this is crazy. But I learned so much on social media from all these doctors putting out videos, these amazing female doctors. So I feel like it's arming us with all this amazing information and all this awareness, but then we've got to try and work out what works for us and not get too overwhelmed by trying to do everything, because then we get wellness burnout, right?
You get analysis paralysis, right? And then you're like, there's so much to do. I think I'll do nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll keep scrolling because I'm not sure what else. Is there much mistrust? For as much as there's amazing information, is there also mistrust?
There is. Look, I've been talking about the apple cider vinegar effect for the last few weeks after watching that. And I think there is a lot of trust issues happening in the media, and particularly with wellness professionals who are giving out advice that suits them but might not suit others, or isn't backed by science, or is not researched. So I think we've got to really stick to what's evidence-based. But I say that loosely as well, because some stuff is amazing and it does work, but it's not necessarily approved by the TGA. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work.
No, that's right.
There's incredible herbs like ashwagandha, which I love. And that's amazing for cortisol.
Yes.
So I think we've got to make our own minds up, but we've got to listen to trusted voices. I think the awareness is great. I think there's so much information out there, but really sort of narrowing in on on what makes sense to us.
Let's talk about ashwagandha. I love ashwagandha. We have it in quite a few actually of our supplements. What does it do in terms of cortisol?
So it really helps to reduce down cortisol levels. It's incredible. So you've got your 3 key sort of supplements to take would be your B vitamins. So your activated Bs, make sure they're methylated so that you can absorb them properly. You've got magnesium, which is like the powerhouse of supplements. I think nearly everyone is deficient in magnesium. We all need it, and we're not getting it in our food. The soil is not rich enough.
No, it's not what it used to be.
This is why you've got all your amazing sups and smoothie stuff, because it's we do need to supplement at times, and a lot of us aren't actually absorbing the nutrients we need to. But I've actually got some good stats I'll share on supplements and ashwagandha, which I heard and it blew my mind. So 30% reduction in cortisol from activated Bs. Magnesium's a 24% decrease in cortisol. And ashwagandha, which is an adaptogen, so 600 milligrams daily after 6 weeks is a 30% reduction in stress and cortisol.
Huge?
That's incredible.
So if anyone doesn't know, an adaptogen is something that helps your body adapt to stress,
And that's what cortisol is.
Yeah.
And adrenaline, right? So they're both, that's how their adaptive process is. So, I mean, these are really fantastic supplements to support.
So good. And easily included. This is the thing, like I say to people, keep your wellness simple, don't overdo it, just keep it,
You need your baselines, your foundations. There's some certain things that we do need to take. We need to support, particularly for our brain health and things like that, which is so important. And cortisol, having dysregulated nervous system and elevated cortisol over a long period of time affects our brains.
Yeah.
It really
does.
It's brain fog, everything. It's like our brains just, because they're overloaded.
Do you think it also causes, we did some work on creating a dopamine menu, right?
Yes.
Specifically. And,
I heard you talk about that on Sunrise. I love it.
Yes.
I did want to post on that a while ago. Actually, I love it.
It's really important. And what I really noticed was the need for the constant dopamine hit.
Yes.
And coming back to kind of what I call monkey mind, and you said, it's like because it's so wired all the time. So like, I guess do you need to have that hit of dopamine simply because you're overdone, you're overcooked?
Well, yeah, I think the dopamine helps to balance some of that cortisol and adrenaline. I mean, obviously good dopamine, which is what you're talking about. Yeah. And I think, similar to what you're talking about, I get my clients to do what brings you joy list and they just have it. And there's several things. Some are simple, some are a bit harder to do or a bit more time commitment. But it's like every day we need to do something on that dopamine menu. We need to do something that brings us joy because that helps to balance.
Yeah.
And some other things that help with cortisol, journaling, writing down how we're feeling, just sort of allowing exercise. We sweat out cortisol.
Oh, really?
When we do diaphragmatic breathing, the big belly, little belly breathing, we actually flush out the cortisol. That's why it's so important to do it every night. And a lot of people that are having sleep issues are because of cortisol and adrenaline. So we get that spike at like 2, 3 a.m. You wake up and because you're already a bit wired, your body's sort of got too much cortisol and adrenaline running through it. It's a bit like a magnet. You get that surge and they stick together and it's like someone's just, you're like awake and the brain goes. So if you go back to that breath work, that's retrains the body and goes, actually, no, we're going to flush this cortisol out. We're not going there. So
that's amazing.
It's really fascinating how powerful it is, how it is impacting our sleep, our nervous system, our hormones.
So if you're not getting enough sleep and you're not getting good quality sleep, both will affect your cortisol levels?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Sleep is the holy grail. Like there's nothing more important than sleep. And, that's why subs like magnesium are so good for sleep. I've got a great hack called the honey hack.
What's that?
So that's a spoonful of honey after dinner. And it's got to be raw or manuka honey. So really important, the quality. You can't just use your cheap squeezy honey. You'll be glucose through the roof. But this basically tricks the brain. So the brain when we're sleeping is very awake and it's still doing a lot of work. And obviously the body's repairing and it's using energy. So we normally use our glycogen in our liver as our energy source, but the honey mimics glycogen. So the brain goes, oh, I like this. I'll use this source. And so it stops the brain and the body relying so heavily on that glycogen in the liver. So it will help people sleep through the night. And it also helps curb a sweet tooth, which is another.
I wonder if that's why I'm looking at Antonio team. We have honey in our sleep powder. And I've wondered if that's why it got formulated with that in that Marcus would have put that in there.
I bet you. Let's check in with Marcus.
There you go. I will ask him. I bet you.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And there's so many healing benefits to honey as well.
Yes.
But it comes back to the quality. And like I talk about being a qualitarian, and it's really important that we think about the foods and what we're consuming. And, if it's honey, that it's raw, it's unfiltered, or it's manuka. The same with our vegetables and our meats and stuff. Like
it
really
can
important.
be hard though, right? Like I think people, there's a lot of, there's two things I think at play here. One is, sometimes I think people feel like if they can't do the absolute best, then there's like, oh, why bother? And so then it's like you kind of do nothing. And I say to people like something is better than nothing. Like for example, I don't buy everything organic. I wish I could. I can't afford to.
It's too much.
So I don't. But I pick and choose, like eggs or chicken or like what kind of is important to me, meats or whatever. But not in other things.
We cannot do it all. Like it's too much. And I think that's why farmers markets are great because actually it's cheaper than a lot of the supermarkets. The veg and it's grown, a lot of it's spray free. And so we can do it. And it's a choice. It's like, okay, maybe don't have a bottle of wine in the week and spend that on better quality vegetables. Or, I think there's trade-offs we can do depending on what's important. Yes. But the key things, your eggs, your meat, your veggies. Yeah. And you just got to do what you can do.
Yes. Do something rather than nothing. Yes, exactly. Now, you have some gadgets.
You're excited, aren't you?
I'm very excited.
We love the gadgets.
I love a gadget. And I feel like sometimes when a gadget helps support us and to build a routine around whatever it is, for example, I know I got an LED face mask, right? just knowing I had that, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to make sure I put some time aside to kind of work on my, the externals of my skin.
Yep.
So what have you got there in your bag of tricks?
I will show you. I love red light therapy, actually. That's part of my 10 minutes a day.
Is it?
And what it does, and this is a great cortisol hack as well, is I do the red light and it's 10 minutes to listen to a podcast, do some breathing, or just do nothing, but it enforces you to just take 10 minutes.
Yep.
So I think it's really important to like habit stack. So get these things where we can create rituals, where we have time, like even doing a gratitude journal at night, just that the process of writing down positive things and just allowing stuff to come out of your brain, like that's going to help reduce our cortisol.
I'm somebody who likes to write. I was the 13-year-old with a diary, right?
Yeah.
So I like to write. And I had on the weekend talking to a girlfriend about how I'm still journaling. And she's like, I hate writing.
It's not for everyone.
So if it's not for you, does just thinking about it, is that as helpful?
It is like just thinking about positive things. Like, and that's when you start doing a gratitude journal, you just start bringing it into your everyday where you're like, oh, I'm actually really grateful for this moment or grateful for this, because you've rewired the brain. So it's that whole new neural pathways, neuroplasticity. But, like it just depends. Like for some people, reading before bed, that 6 minutes of reading reduces our stress by 68%. So yeah, read a book, read one chapter of a book if you don't want to write or, or do both.
Yeah.
All right, technology.
Okay, talk to me.
All right, so we've got, this has just arrived. So this is Pulsetto. So this was on Brian Johnson's doco on Netflix. Don't Die.
Netflix, yep.
And this actually is a vagus nerve stimulator. So this really helps to actually stimulate your vagus nerve, and you wear it just around your neck like this.
Okay. So like 10 minutes a day, a couple of hours?
Yeah, so 10 to 20 minutes a day. Okay. So it goes around your neck like this.
Yep.
And it's got a sort of electromagnetic static, sort of feels things that are coming through to your neck, which is going to help to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. Wow. So there's been a lot of research into these. These are amazing.
And is it sort of immediately coming, or is it like a slow?
It's a practice. You've got to keep doing it. You'll feel an immediate sort of more calming effect. But again, it depends on, everyone's so different with their bodies. But I think like things like this really help for people that are busy and that are sort of on the go all the time. And just to have that practice of doing that for 10 minutes is going to make a huge difference.
And if you are in a house with multiple people, then you can all use it, right?
Yeah,
it's not
which would be great.
And so these things are, I think sometimes they're an investment, but they're a one-time investment.
Oh, and everyone can use them.
Yeah.
This I love. This is called a brain tap. This is really sci-fi. So this is sound and light therapy.
Okay.
So this kind of, you have lights and sound coming through your ears, and then you have lights coming through here. And this creates retinal flashing, which basically helps to tap into your brainwaves and helps you to get into deep relaxation. And then it's guided. So you go in, there's an app and there's loads of different things. So this really 40% reduction in stress just using this once.
So it's like a meditation. So it's like you're listening to a meditation?
Everything. It's got meditations. It's got things around PTSD, around grief. Like it's trauma. Like this is really amazing.
Wow.
And the light therapy. So that's sort of activating different parts of your brain waves. And then the sound is creating that Mozart effect in your brain where it's lighting up certain parts of the brain and soothing and calming. And
that's amazing.
So that's super cool.
How much is that? Do we know?
Brain tap's a little bit more, actually. But again, a lot of these are like they're from the US, so we're not quite across them in Australia just yet, but they're going to be big here. So I think the prices will go down. This is like something out of Star Trek, but
this is like a headband you haven't put on correctly. Okay, cool.
So this has got like EEG. So this is like measuring our brainwaves as well. So this is like real lifetime metrics, right? Yep. So then there's an app to this, and you can do guided meditations, and it will tell you where you're going from your brainwaves. So for anyone that likes to measure stuff, this is pretty cool. And I don't think this is expensive. Muse. I might have to do a quick Google.
We'll have a look. That's amazing.
But these are great. And I think with people that struggle with meditation and struggle with finding time. And
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I find it, I start and then I just start thinking about whatever else is going on for me.
To-do
and
list.
then, the to-do list, that's right. And then I go, I have to do this later. I have to make some time for this later.
These are great. I mean, this really works. Brain tap's great. Like you just sink in, and because it's doing it all for you.
Yeah.
So I love this. It's like lazy meditation, lazy relaxation. Just lie there and
I love a bit of lazy scheduled relaxation.
Yeah.
For people who want to, if I was trying to unlock something now that I could do 3 things aside from buying something
Yes.
to help support me, what are the 3 things I finished this podcast in a couple of minutes that I could basically, what are 3 things that I could do to help lower my cortisol?
Okay. So number 1, definitely breath work. So belly breathing in and out through the nose and extending that exhale. Just do it every night, like hands on your belly, part of your routine. And just even if you feel stressed in the day, just to do that. So that's one thing. Number 2, I really would try cold showers. There's so much research, like honestly, 30 seconds, it really does work. It helps to activate that vagus nerve. It helps to calm the cortisol. Grounding's great. Like just trying to get out more in nature is a really big one. And sunlight helps to reduce our cortisol levels.
Does it matter if it's, you often see stuff like you go out first thing in the morning, get the sun in your eyes, like how is it that or is
natural
any
light
kind
first thing in the morning is so important.
Yeah.
So that sets off our sleep-wake cycle for the day, so our circadian rhythm. So most of us wake up in the morning, we're on mobile phones. It's the worst thing we can do. So try and open the blinds, open your curtains, whatever, or just go get some natural light for 10 minutes before you go on a phone.
Yes.
That really helps with sleep, but it helps to reduce down that cortisol as well.
I don't want to ask you this question because I don't want to hear the answer, but I'll ask you anyway. How much does screen time affect your cortisol levels?
Oh, look, I don't have stats, but I probably don't want to see the stats.
Yeah.
I don't think we
sure
want to.
I want to know either.
But look, I think it's hit and miss. It depends what you're looking at, really, And I think like we've got to reduce down that screen time because our poor little brains are not designed for all this stimulation.
Yeah.
Like it's back to back and video and flashing, it's so much information. So I think just trying to find when we take breaks during the day, they've got to be screen free. The only way the brain is able to reset is from not being stimulated.
Without stimulation.
So, 5-minute micro breaks of like, make a tea, make a coffee, have a chat, put your laundry out.
Yeah.
Go for a 5-minute walk. That's when you actually allow the brain to reset and reduce the cortisol. Whereas unfortunately, more stimulation is going to create more cortisol.
You didn't want the answer to that question, but you're right. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's so helpful. Thank you.
Love being here.
So
Thank you
good.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Well, that's a wrap on Wellness Unlocked. If it hit home, then hit follow, share it, and dive into the show notes for all of the links and any of the resources. Head to swish.com for more, and if you're in Australia, you can also find us in Priceline stores. Now, we want to hear from you what resonated, what you want more of, and what you're curious about next. This is your space for wellness that works.
Remember, everything we cover is for general informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or wellness routine.